Hey everyone, I'm Cesar Condi, Chairman of the NBCUniversal News Group. I'm so pleased that you're able to join us for this fall's NBCU Academy Next Level Summit. The topic of today's summit is Know Your Audience, a subject that is so important to all that we do as the nation's largest news organization, reaching about 7 in 10 American adults each month. Knowing your audience is fundamental to success as a journalist, no matter what role you play in telling a story, and whether you're on television, streaming, digital, or print. A central component of knowing your audience is building trust with your audience. We are committed to building trust by holding ourselves to the highest journalistic standards and building teams that broadly represents the audience we want to reach in all of their dimensions. It also requires offering compelling programming on topics of interest to the communities that we serve. In a world that has become so connected, our most sacred responsibility is to inform our audiences through the creation of content that reflects and represents all of the communities that we serve across all of our platforms. Today, you will hear about knowing your audience and building trust from some of the most talented people across our business, network leaders, as well as veteran journalists and anchors who are bringing cutting-edge content through the latest technology across NBCU's wide array of programs. We are particularly proud to introduce you to journalists and leaders from NBC News, MSNBC, CNBC, NBC News Now, Telemundo, and NBCUniversal's local stations across the nation. Together, we are revolutionizing the art of storytelling and are eager to provide you with valuable advice to help advance your career. The Academy continues to bring its ideals to life by training the next generation of journalists and leaders through its close collaboration with 45 institutions of higher learning and events like today's summit. With that, I will leave you to be inspired by the insights and perspectives that NBCU Academy has in store over the next few hours. Thank you again for participating in today's program.
Hi there, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Today. Nice to have you with us.
There is breaking news
here on NBC News Daily.
Making news right now.
Breaking news at the Supreme Court.
An NBC News Now special report.
I want to cut through some of the weedsy stuff and let's just get to the point.
Let's take this Apple situation head on because I know you care about it so much.
Some of the headlines are downright scary. Is flying safe right now?
Why has the U.S. government not invested more in water infrastructure?
There have been 13 school shootings this year. That's one per week. It almost makes you think that it is acceptable on some level.
People will go, well, that's my Second Amendment right. It's just a lie, and it is a lie that is killing.
We are in the town of Sderot, and there has been a lot of incoming fire here.
There are close to 800,000 people displaced inside of Gaza. Remember, those civilians have no way out.
Ahí conocimos a Chanel, que vive en la casa dañada.
Are you afraid now?
Very afraid. I know you want the world to see these images, and we will say their names and show their pictures and pray for their safe return to you.
These Ukrainian children share the pain of a common journey and carrying with them the fear of never seeing their loved ones again.
Our team is all over every angle of this story tonight with reporters spread all across the border.
The 2024 election is 13 months away, but today we have a snapshot of where things stand.
Trump versus Biden in a rematch, it's a tie.
When you go to bed at night, do you worry about going to jail?
No, I don't, really.
You're not considering, and you wouldn't consider, deporting massively non-Mexican immigrants to Mexico.
I'm saying we have not done that.
While Latinos are the second largest population group in the United States, new data shows they're massively underrepresented on corporate boards.
Are you trying to send a signal
of course
that
not.
Some types of communities, some types of people aren't welcome here in Tennessee?
Andrea Hsu founded grocery delivery service Umami Cart to bring Asian ingredients and foods straight to your door.
I grew up on this stuff.
The Gathering Spot has plans to expand, but its mission will stay the same: to provide a safe space and support to the Black community.
I went down to Galveston, the birthplace of Juneteenth, and talked to folks about those forces that are colluding against the Black community today.
60 years later, what goes through your mind?
We have more work to do. There's more to be done.
The volunteers here say they are the ones inspired by the people they serve.
This is the philosophy of America, to be the beacon of hope for people who are coming from the darkness.
I just feel so grateful and humbled to all of those who built this amazing legacy.
What we are most proud of is our connection to you, our viewers who are home and on our plaza. You are what makes our show truly special.
Thank you, our viewers.
From all of our colleagues across the networks of NBC News,
Please take care of yourself and each other.
Good morning. Welcome to NBCU Academy's 4th Next Level Summit. Know Your Audience. I'm Zinclea Samoa, NBC News Daily co-host and a correspondent right here at NBC News. We could not be more thrilled to have you here today. So if you're wondering who is in the crowd, well, today we're joined by college students, NBC and Comcast teams, managers, and really a community of people committed to telling impactful stories. And we all know from the newsroom to the boardroom, audience matters in every single aspect of our work in journalism, entertainment, production, marketing, public relations, and beyond. So we've got an impressive lineup of top leaders, journalists, and innovators to talk us through the best ways to identify and connect with your audience, level up your content creation game, because we know that matters, and take your career to the next level. So here's what to expect today. Over the next few hours, you're going to have the opportunity to interact live. That's right, live. So pay attention with all of our all-star panelists. We're going to start with a new moderator of Meet the Press, Kristen Welker. She's coming to us live from the Meet the Press set in Washington, D.C. And get this, with a studio audience. She's going to be joined by top leaders from Comcast NBCUniversal, the NBCU News Group, and Telemundo as they discuss innovative strategies for building and growing new audiences. Then we'll be joined by veteran journalist and anchor Andrea Mitchell as she marks 45 whole years reporting for the network and 15 years as an anchor on MSNBC. You'll hear how she's built her brand to be one of the most trusted journalists of our time. Next, we're going to jet over to Miami, where we'll pull back the curtain on how the technology behind one of the most popular video games in the world, Fortnite, is also powering many of the jaw-dropping effects you're seeing in news and entertainment today. You're going to learn from the cutting-edge technical teams and artists that are modernizing the way we deliver and produce your content. After that, you're going to have a choice of joining one of 3 breakout sessions. We've got NBC News Now anchor and my colleague, Hallie Jackson. She's going to sit down with leaders in digital and streaming from NBC News, MSNBC, and Peacock. They're going to share their expert insights and strategies on just how to grow a news and entertainment audience on digital platforms and how to stay ahead of the competition. Morning News Now anchor Savannah Sellers is going to dive deep into how social media continues to play a huge role in just how people are consuming and sharing content. Remember the success of those 2 little movies, Barbenheimer? Well, you're going to hear from our NBCUniversal leaders about how they're innovating on social media to boost ratings and grow audiences. In our 3rd breakout, we'll ask and answer the question, how do you best connect with communities of color in storytelling, outreach, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy? Our panel of experts will share their experiences and best practices for identifying and targeting the critical needs of communities and have real impact. And right after those exciting breakout sessions, we'll have a special message from NBCUniversal Chief Diversity Officer Craig Robinson, followed by a phenomenal fireside chat with 3 members of our Superstar Today team, Craig Melvin, Chanel Jones, and Dylan Dreyer. Find out how they engage, inform, and inspire audiences and continue to really just grow their brand across multiple platforms. But of course, that is not all, folks, because right after that fireside chat, you're going to have the choice of 3 career expo rooms, so you can learn how to zone in on the right audience when looking for your next job, explore unique careers in audience research, and learn how on-air talent connects with their audience offline. NBCU Academy is an award-winning program that's focused on training the next generation of journalists and content creators. We're building a pipeline, really, from classrooms to the newsroom and the entire media industry. This free virtual summit is really just one of the many ways NBCU Academy advances excellence in journalism, media, and tech, and helps students and professionals in these fields grow their careers. And in case you didn't know, we actually have partnerships with 45 academic institutions. They reflect underrepresented communities across the country. So we've got students from 4 of those partner and affiliate schools. You're seeing them now. They're standing by live to pepper our panelists with questions. So get ready. They're going to be asking those questions throughout the day. In fact, you're looking live at students from the City College of New York in Manhattan, the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. Many of our partner schools, such as Ohio State University and Columbus, are holding watch parties right now. How fun! Students as far away as the Universidad del Sagrado Corazón in San Juan, Puerto Rico, are gathered to participate in today's summit. Wow. I mean, quite the crowd. And remember, if you're watching us from home, you can actually submit questions live in the Q&A tab on your screen. And if you stick around for our Career Expo rooms a little later today, you're actually going to be able to come on camera and engage with the panelists, so don't go anywhere. I know that was a lot. So let's get started with our first panel, and my esteemed colleague and generous mentor, the moderator of Meet the Press, Kristen Welker, is going to take it over.
Zinkley, thank you so much. Amazing job. And good morning to you all, and welcome to NBCU Academy's Next Level Summit. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press. This is the 4th summit for NBCU Academy, and we are so excited because it's the first time we've ever had a live studio audience join us. So thanks for being here, guys. We want to get to reaching and attracting new audiences, which has never been more challenging with today's intense and competitive media landscape. We are here to share key insights on the importance of building trust with audiences and innovative strategies for attracting new, diverse viewers and content consumers. To kick off the day, we have top leaders in studio with me from NBCUniversal and Comcast. Rebecca Blumenstein, NBC News' president for Editorial, is here. Rashida Jones is the president of MSNBC. Beau Ferrari is the chairman for Telemundo Enterprises, overseeing entertainment, sports, news, cable, global studios, and 30 local Telemundo stations. Give it up for Beau. And Dalila Wilson-Scott, the executive vice president and chief diversity officer of Comcast Corporation and president of Comcast NBCUniversal Foundation. Thank you all for being here. Well, look, we know this is a particularly difficult time for everyone, given the horrific and devastating attack on Israel and the tragic war and humanitarian crisis that it's provoked. We truly appreciate you making the time for this event and for helping us develop the next generation of journalists and content creators. We will be taking questions from students in our studio audience and at our partner schools. We're going to do that in just a moment. And for those of you participating virtually, please drop your questions in the Q&A box to the right of your screen, and we will get to them throughout this discussion. So I do want to get this started. And Rebecca, I want to start with you. Talk about this extraordinary moment we are in. Basically, everything changed on October 7th, and we found ourselves covering a war in the Middle East.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the terrorist attack on October 7th really has utterly changed everything, not only in the Mideast, but I would say it's one of these moments, and people have compared it to 9/11, and you look at the proportion of the population affected in Israel alone, and it's multiple times that. The other big difference is that it's not over. There are still hostages. There is obviously now a war. And the bombs in Gaza, the bombing at the hospital the other day, there are just heartbreaking stories on both sides. And it's quite frankly a very divisive time all around the world and in this country. And we are covering all aspects of it. I will say that we have 6 correspondents on the ground. We have multiple teams there. We have been delivering, Telemundo was there, MS, all of our platforms, live coverage. And I think one of our fundamental duties at a moment like this is to bear witness, to be there, to deliver the reporting, to break news. We had a story, an exclusive story that one of our producers and our digital staff did, along with one of our correspondents, that Hamas had planned the attacks really to target children in schools. And that sort of reporting is incredibly important for us to do. And also on digital, where we're covering it live, and we have correspondents from around the world just giving up-to-the-minute developments, both in the Mideast and here. So, but it is going to, we were talking last night to some very senior people in Washington, and it is going to reorder the political landscape. We're in the middle of an election here, and this is one of these events that I think truly does change everything.
I think it truly does. Rashida, obviously, MSNBC has been going 24/7.
It's been nonstop for everyone, and I think everything that Rebecca said about just the focus the teams have been putting into covering the story and breaking news and bringing the reality to light. There's also been an impact on just the people. I mean, we're all human, and I think seeing day after day of just terrible images and just the fallout from that initial terror attack has been striking for our teams. And so while we're equally focused on covering the story and bringing justice to the story, we're also thoughtful about our colleagues who are in a war zone.
Yes.
Our colleagues who are affected either directly or indirectly. And I think it's times like this where having a company like this where it truly feels like a family is what gets you through.
I think you're right, and we do just want to take a moment to salute our colleagues who are there covering the war, and we pray for their safety every day, and we're just so in awe of the work that they are doing. Let's take a big picture look at some of the trends that we are dealing with as we cover this extraordinary moment. Rebecca, in August, NBC News Group reported 172 million viewers ages 18 and up. That includes 83 million digital only. I had to read that like 4 different times. That's twice as many as TV viewers. Talk about how NBCUniversal is adapting to that changing landscape.
It's an excellent question. And there's no question, look, we're in the middle of a digital transition. And we are so fortunate at NBC News because, and across NBC because we have multiple websites. NBCnews.com, we just got some figures yesterday. We now are the second largest in the country. We beat the New York Times for 3 months in a row. We're much bigger than many competitors. And we are really in the business of providing free, high-quality news, trusted news at a moment when people need it. And you shouldn't have to have a subscription to get premium news. We also have, importantly, streaming. And we started it 3 years ago, and we really have a leg up there. On streaming, and it's now multiple hours a day. And you think about how so many of us get our news. It's like the phone. And I think this really changed during the pandemic. And what's a critical thing to realize is that it's the internet, and we are there competing against everyone every day and fighting for viewers every day. Most of our TV views now come through digital. YouTube is a big channel. People access NBC News now, our streaming channel. They access the content through digital. And this is simply where the future is. We need to do journalism. We have an advantage because we do words and we do video. And at moments like this, you all know that people want to see what's happening. And so what we can do with Meet the Press, that you host every Sunday in so many segments, is that we can cut it up into segments that are approachable to people. We can meet people where they are on their platforms. And I think that's the unique power. But there's no question that digital is changing everything. I will say, though, that we should not forget the power of linear television. Every night, Nightly is getting 7 million views. The Today Show, we've seen that. It provides an essential service for millions of people every day and every morning. Telemundo, I mean, and so I think that and obviously MS. So I think that in many ways, the reports of the demise of television have been exaggerated, and there's a robust career for all of you in television because it continues to be a powerful medium. And then when you combine it with digital, just helps us extend our reach even further.
It is, and it's extraordinary how many different platforms we're operating on. And Beau, that takes me perfectly to you. Telemundo reaches 95% of Hispanic TV households in the U.S., which is just an extraordinary number. Talk about your strategy for dealing with this shifting landscape.
Sure, thank you. Wonderful to be here with everyone and with you, Kristen. So, the way we think about Telemundo is as a mirror of NBCUniversal for Spanish language and Hispanics. And Hispanics, as we know, are the fastest growing demographic in this country, 63 million strong today. And what we're looking to do is to pair our content assets with that fast growing demographic. When we look at the wheel and giving you a quick tour of Telemundo, we have, with our studios, we're the #1 Spanish language content powerhouse in the country. We produce for U.S. Hispanics by U.S. Hispanics. Our prime time has the leading reality franchises. Our sports, we have the World Cup coming up here in 2026. We just got back from Sydney and New Zealand with the Women's World Cup this summer. And we have the Olympics next summer in Paris. And then we also have a number of assets across working with our colleagues at NBC News and MSNBC with Noticias Telemundo and the wonderful work that is being done with news across all platforms as well, cable and streaming. So when we look at all of that across the content genres and working in close collaboration with NBCUniversal, it becomes a really powerful proposition to reach these fast-growing audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Dalila, you obviously oversee diversity and equity initiatives for Comcast. How do you meet the needs of your audiences, both internally and externally to NBC Universal?
Oh, well, thank you for the questions. Great to be here. Welcome to our Morgan State and HU students in the room. In my role at Comcast, I get to touch diversity, equity, and inclusion across all of our brands. So whether that's Comcast, NBC, Telemundo, Sky, when you think about the people in this room, our internal audiences, our employees, our community partners, we all want the same thing. We want sources we can trust, we want it to be authentic, and we want storytelling that really resonates and matters with us. And that's usually how we think about it, right? So are we telling a story in a way that makes sense for the audience we're trying to get to, and does it matter to them? So when we think about even just the social impact initiatives we're building, so Project Up is our corporate commitment. It's $1 billion commitment to digital equity. We know that when you think about media and technology and how our company needs to evolve to be relevant, we can't do that without having digital equity around the world. And that's why it's important to us. It allows us to support programs like this, NBCU Academy, Comcast Rise, which is about small businesses, and to make sure that people are connected to a pathway of economic mobility. So that matters to us as a company, as a business, it matters to our consumers, and it absolutely matters to the communities we're trying to serve.
That connectivity is so central, I think, to what we do as journalists. Rashida, I want to give you an audience question. This was pre-submitted. This was from an Indigenous storyteller and filmmaker, Rahe Wani Tanama, who asks, do you develop your content first and offer to your audience later, or do you involve your audience from the start? Kind of speaks to this idea of this connectivity that we're talking about. How do you think about that from your vantage point?
Sure. So I think there are a couple of different ways to approach it. There are some stories that, as journalists, we're going to cover. They're important stories to tell. Whether there is a strong audience reaction or not, they're important stories to tell. But I do think, especially in a world of social media where there is just more of a interaction with your audiences, it's interesting to see what people react to. It's interesting to see what stories resonate with people. And the other piece of that, I think it's also interesting to see who we're reaching in certain spaces. There are a lot of stories that we could do that you may not see on linear, especially for the folks in this room, but you're going to pick it up if we put it on TikTok or Snap or whatever platform you're consuming. And so I think that relationship builds a little bit more of a two-way street than we've ever seen before. We've never had the opportunity to, in real time, see how people are engaging, what they're interested in. And I think for us, that's a benefit.
Yeah. I want to get to more audience questions, but I want you all to weigh in on this. According to a report from the Knight Foundation in February of this year, only 26% of Americans have a favorable opinion of the news media, which is the lowest level recorded in the past 5 years. Rebecca, we know that this is the landscape, but how do you approach those numbers and those figures?
I mean, I think what we need to do every day as journalists is earn people's trust. Mm-hmm. And I actually do feel that with the different platforms we have a better stab at doing it than most. I mean, fundamentally, a lot of people really want to hear people. They don't want perspectives filtered. And when we can present them as fairly as possible, I think that does build trust. We have local television stations around the country. And when you look at study after study, local news is way up there in terms of who people trust. They're meteorologists, they're traffic, but also I was so proud last week, we had our 5 DuPont Awards, the highest honor in television journalism, were won by our local stations. And so these are stations that you hear about local news deserts, and it's not really true. There are stations, we have over 200 owned and operated affiliate Telemundo stations around the country providing an essential service. And I think we build trust day by day. In a complex story like the war, we are presenting and covering all sides. And I think original journalism is also hugely key to it. When we can tell people the fact that they don't know. When we can portray a story and tell, bring a complex story and tell it through the eyes of a human. Tom Yamas today showed a Palestinian boy in Gaza who was rescued, thankfully, but who was in rubble up to his chest, and you can't not see that and have a visceral feeling for the event. But there's something powerful about the medium of seeing it that is fundamental to trust. But we have to earn it, no question, every day. And we are entering an election, as you well know, on Meet the Press, and really making a concerted effort to walk in people's shoes. I'm originally from Michigan, right? I'm from the flyover. And if there's anyone from Michigan out there, a big hello. But it is so important for us to get out there, for us not to sit there and project what other people feel, to go out there, to walk in their shoes, to do stories that actually are relevant to them and reflect their lives, their struggles, their concerns.
Beau, weigh in on that idea that trust is earned every day.
Yeah, I think for Telemundo and our audience, that is central to everything we do every day. Our strongest connection is our connection to our community. Yeah. And our community really looks after our content and our news in particular to build a foundation of trust. So, I think to Dalila's comment, our connection to community in particular and the values of community and tying those values to the content that we deliver every day is central to everything we do.
Okay, we do have an audience question. And we want to, hello there, how are you? Tell us your name and tell us your question, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. My name is Deanna Neal from the great Morgan State University. And my question is, what strategies can reporters employ in order to connect with a more diverse demographic?
Great.
I have a thought to that. I think one of the best tools you have is being you. I think allowing your life's experiences to help guide what stories you pursue, who you talk to, what questions they're asked. As journalists, we always want to make sure we're approaching a story from as an objective point of view as possible. But I do think you can't pretend that you're not who you are. And I think when you bring those two things together, I always refer to it as a superpower. You being a journalist with life experience, and when those things come together, I think the stories come from there, and I think you're also doing a service to the audience.
Absolutely. Dalila, do you want to weigh in on that?
I'll just tell a story about one of the NBCU Academy embeds, Jay, by a member of the LGBTQ community, did an incredible body of research over several months about a story affecting his community. Nobody could tell that story like Jay. People wanted to hear it from him, how he told it, representing the community, even thinking about the biases people have about crimes committed against the LGBT community. So I just think that to that point of making sure that you were keeping the story in perspective, but noting that however unique your story is, if you're telling it truthfully, it will resonate with the person on the other side. Yeah.
Great advice.
And if I could just jump in, kind of a similar effort. There was a reporter at part of NBC Out who started covering some really disturbing incidents in the gay community in New York that were happening as patrons were coming out of bars and getting robbed. Some of them died and their bank accounts were drained. And because this reporter was paying attention to the press in this community, picked up on this, NBC Out did a story. It was on digital. It wasn't like a top of the Today Show story, but the friend of a mother of one of these victims saw it and took it to her friend, and she used our story to press the police for answers. And because of this story that was from a reporter who was paying attention to the community, we uncovered a murder ring that had been targeting people across New York, and that there's now, I believe, 5 people in prison, and this may be something that was happening around the country. And so it just shows the value of paying attention to your community. That being said, I think it's also really important to do stories beyond your community. I think if you're an aspiring reporter, I would love you to go cover breaking news, cover traffic accidents, cover things that cover protests, cover things that have nothing to do with your community. Make sure your sources are diverse, but really be there covering a wide range of do obits, do things that, there's nothing like the experience of knocking on someone's door after they've lost a loved one, and just getting that experience and the writing and the foundation of a wide range of breaking news, because that will also really propel and help your career.
Thank you.
Thank you for the fantastic question. We appreciate it. And we've got another question from the University of Missouri. Sarah Moyers is a recent graduate of the university and is now a morning anchor at KOMU, the NBC affiliate in Columbia, Missouri. Sarah, first of all, congratulations, and tell us your question.
Thank you. All right, well, I am joined here by a handful of current students at the University of Missouri who have been diligently writing and taking notes. And one of those students is Shay Lawson right here, and she has a question for you guys. Shay?
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity today. I'm just wondering, how does your organization leverage data and analytics to inform your audience engagement strategies?
Beau, do you want to start that one, and then we can...
Sure. So I'll start. Great question. Thank you. So I'll start with how we look at key performance indicators and how we look at a number of different things as the media landscape is evolving to the topic of this discussion. Rebecca hit it a little bit earlier, but the power of live linear television we're seeing with traditional ratings formats. But we also look at other metrics in terms of how content travels across all of our platforms, including streaming. So we're looking at impressions and we're looking at subscribers. But really the way that every piece of content that we have across entertainment, news, sports, we look at it in terms of the entire longevity across all of the platforms. So it is something we pay close attention to every single day.
And I would just add to that, it's an important tool. It's not an absolute. There are going to be certain stories or certain angles that are important to cover, whether they have a strong audience reaction. So, I use it as a tool, but not necessarily as a, final decision maker of whether we're going to cover this or how we're going to cover it. And for us, we spend a lot of time, and we're very prescriptive about it, both covering qualitative and quantitative data. There are numbers, and numbers can tell you a certain thing, but then talking to viewers and getting feedback on what they react to can give you a different tool. And so I think they're tools in a big toolbox. You should have access. You should use them. You should understand them. But there are times where the audience feedback, so to speak, isn't necessarily going to be your final indicator.
And I would just add that data is just key to really reporting and to finding patterns in stories. And by the way, hi to my friend Kathy Kiley at the University of Missouri at the journalism school. But if you can, as you're studying journalism, really perfect analytics, using this as a tool to say, hey, I have a hunch about a story, but I'm gonna design an algorithm. I'm gonna design a way to test this out data-wise. What kind of data can I get across the country to buttress my theory here? That is what ultimately helps with trust, right? Because then you're not dealing with anecdotes, you're actually dealing with data. And so to the extent that you can use the internet, use the data, use digital, use what's out there to really inform our reporting and where we go, I think it really makes it more trusted. And certainly on the internet, on digital, we're using every single analytic we have in terms of stories and tracking and what's going well, what isn't. You can see when there's a breaking news event, live coverage on digital and television is obviously so important. And you note reader interest, but it's not, to your point, Rashida, it's not the only thing we look at.
Yeah. Great points. Great advice. All right, well, we've got a question at William Patterson University, so we're going to Isabel Biratari, our student reporter and NBC News intern. Isabel, who's got a question there?
Well, this is an NBC Academy first. You could see behind me that the control room is being currently crewed by the students. And we're honored to be asked to be part of this summit. And the control room being crewed by the students is one of the great aspects of this university. From day one, students come in, we're trained in every position in the control room, and we produce live television. Being hands-on and getting real experience is one of the great aspects of this school. In Studio A right now, we have our audience of students who have prepared questions for all of the panels throughout the day. And as you can probably tell, we have a lot going on here at the Department of Communication. From music to sports, news, comedy, late night TV, and even a partnership with our award-winning radio station, Brave New Radio. William Patterson University students are involved in every level of production. We create television every week because this is what we love to do. Working together as a team, supporting each other with the end goal of working in the #1 market in the country, and maybe even NBC. Once again, we're so honored to be part of the NBCU Academy Next Level Summit, and we're so excited for this opportunity. And with that, I'm going to send it over to Nick Wilkerson in Studio A, who is asking our first question today.
Thanks, Isabel. I appreciate that. My question is, what exactly, what is the difficulty with making engaging content for the audience and the viewers while still maintaining the integrity of the story that you're working on?
Okay, great question, Nick and Isabel. Fantastic show and tell. That's extraordinary how much work they are doing.
That was impressive.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, they deserve a round of applause for that. Who wants to take that question from Nick? Rebecca, you want to?
I'll jump in. I mean, I actually think that one not ought to overthink it.
Yeah.
That really it's a story and it's original journalism and is what is the fact that I'm going to put in the world and have that be your North Star. I have a good friend who's younger than me who really understands social media and all these platforms and she told me something really smart recently. She said, Rebecca, the first thing you do is the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to, but that's only the first thing. That's the first step. It used to be in journalism, you did the story, you published it in the way you published it, and then you went home and you felt that my job is done. Our job is not done with the story. We then need to bring it to the platforms where people are. And we may need to cater it, we may need to do it slightly differently on different platforms, and that's what modern journalism is. But we can't assume people will come to us. We need to go to people, but yet you have to start with the story. You have to start with the journalism. You have to start with the facts, and then you take it out. And if we can do both of those things, it makes me very optimistic, as does your school.
Yeah, I love this school. Dalila, just weigh in on what we just saw, the importance of having these opportunities and that hands-on experience.
Definitely. Well, one, I want to start with the fact, which is 92% of all jobs, regardless of industry, requires a digital skill set, and that includes media. So you just heard a little bit about the data analysis required to get the story right, in addition to the context setting. Rebecca talked about once you have the story, how are you putting it out there? There are thousands of people and incredible talent across NBCU that makes what happens in front of the camera relevant. So as you're thinking about pursuing different careers, just remember a big piece of that is digital. That could be everything from leveraging AI, right, as a tool for equity, as a tool for storytelling, how to get to your customer, your audience member. So, there are lots of opportunities regardless of your major. And as journalists, you just want to be thinking about there's many places to be in this industry that aren't in front of the camera.
Yeah, and it's so important to take advantage of those opportunities. Dalila, it's such a great point. All right, well, we want to take a question now from our virtual audience from the Q&A box. Kevin Thomas asks, how can we as journalists help amplify our community's quietest voices? Beau, let me go to you on that one.
So I think this sort of speaks to the point we were talking about earlier about trust and authenticity. And when we have quiet voices in the community, I think we want to be able to speak to them in a way that's authentic. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of how we try to bring everything out in terms of entertainment, sports, and news content that we produce.
Yeah, authenticity certainly is so critical. Rashida, do you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. The only thing I was going to add in was a reflection of something that Rebecca said, which was the idea of getting out of, what we would consider kind of media capitals, New York, D.C., L.A. to an extent, and going into more communities. The story's not always going to come to you, and I think going to find the story, going to a community that may be a geographic community that we don't go to often, or a region that we don't go to often. I think we as journalists have a responsibility to go into these places, to find stories, to find characters. Sometimes the squeakiest wheel isn't necessarily the most representative wheel. And so I think that's a responsibility for us in all aspects of storytelling.
It is a huge responsibility. It's a really great way to put it. All right, we do have another virtual audience question from the Q&A box. Nancy Berner asks, what's the top challenge for the next phase of journalism audience growth, identifying deep fakes, social media, or something else? This is such an important one. Rebecca, kick this off, because we spend so much time talking about this and trying to figure out how can we be ahead of the curve on this issue.
Absolutely, and I would just say yes to all of those.
Yes.
We definitely, especially with the rise of AI, face a threat in terms of just how will people not be confused, what is real and what isn't. And you can be assured that across the news group, we're looking very hard at how we really authenticate video, how we even in this moment of the Israel-Hamas war are making sure that the video that we are showing our viewers. We have a social news gathering team, and they have such a hard job because they literally have to watch hours and hours and hours of video, of the most gruesome video you can imagine, and verify what is right and what isn't. But we have to, because we're trusted, we have to be so sure of what we put out there is real. I would say that social media has become so poisoned that I think that there's many consumers who are just like, you know what, I need to go to a platform I trust. I think it actually gives me hope and in established media, whether it's print, whether it's television. People have kind of gotten the message that half of what I see on social media is right, half of what I see is wrong, and I am going to go to someone I trust. And so I actually feel that the missteps on social media have given us an opportunity that we need to earn every day, but to actually, through communities around the country, to be able to say, come to us. We are working so hard to make sure that we are verifying the facts out there. We are traveling through the night to bear witness on the Today Show whenever there's a shooting or anything, that we are there to bear witness. And I think that in a way, if we keep sticking to that, it's the best path forward.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, Rebecca, to hear you talk about the fact that the trend is slowly starting to potentially move in the other direction, where people are going back to trusted news sources because there is so much misinformation and disinformation online. And we have another question from our studio audience. Please introduce yourself and thank you for being here.
Hello, lovely panel. My name is my name is Tavon Thomason. I'm a Morgan State University. I'm a multimedia journalism major.
Great.
I heard that you talked about artificial intelligence, and I have a question regarding that. So, for journalism going forward, artificial intelligence continue to evolve, and it's continue to evolve. And I wonder, what do you see the future impacts, the opportunities, or the challenges that this may face for the NBC and the news industry, and as a whole?
Wonderful, thank you.
I think your point about opportunities and challenges is exactly right. I think we've all seen where it can be manipulated, and there's a trust issue there. No, President Obama was not dancing during halftime of the Liberty game. That was AI. It was totally fake. Like, those kind of things exist in the same space of real content. So the risk is wading through what's real, what's not, and not allowing your audience to be manipulated by that. And so I think we have to continue to figure out, will there be regulation around that? How do we as journalists continue to kind of minimize the risk to the extent that we can? But I also think we should think about some of this technology from a way of opportunity. How can it either enhance content or storytelling? Is there data that can be used to help inform stories? I think from core journalism and reporting, it's not the best use of it, but I do think there are some ways where it can be an enhancement. Is there a way that this technology can reach students in communities that don't have sophisticated newsrooms, for example, to bring you an opportunity to work in a virtual space that is more realistic to what you'll get in the workforce? So I do think we're just at the very beginning of this process. What I want to think about is, how do we use it to enhance what we're doing? How do we use it to provide equity and opportunity, maybe in places that don't experience it, while we're also figuring out how do we maintain and minimize the risk?
And I think at the end of the day, we're still learning, about how AI will impact all of us. What I would say to you and sort of future leaders that are here listening is, don't let the technology happen to you. Learn AI, learn how it works, learn what's possible, learn what it could be, learn the positive aspects where you can use it to create greater good, to get that story right, as opposed to thinking about all the harmful ways that it could affect us.
That's such a powerful piece of advice, to learn the technology and
absolutely
try to understand it. All right, well, we've got another question at William Patterson University. We go now to Isabel Biratari, our student reporter and NBC News intern. Hi, Isabel, again.
Hello once again. Thank you. Our next question is from Crystal Fernando.
As you may know, William Patterson University is a majority-minority Hispanic-serving institution. As a woman of color, I'm concerned that male audiences won't take me as seriously. How can people of color here at William Patterson University find their home in journalism?
Great question. Thank you so much. Beau, do you want to start off?
Yeah, so I think, starting with the question that was asked a little bit earlier, and thank you for the question.
Great question.
NBC Universal is a home that really fosters equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so, in terms of building your career, this is a place that culturally we talk about that all the time. I can talk about Telemundo in terms of culture. The majority of our senior executive team at Telemundo is women, are women, and so we are majority led by women. So there is tremendous opportunity. And so when you look for a place that you want to advance your career or start your career, I think looking at culture is a really important thing, and finding like-minded values that you want to surround yourself with in terms of the people that you're with.
Rebecca, do you want to make one final point here?
Yeah, you're going to hear from Andrea Mitchell in the next segment, and Andrea is just a pioneer in journalism. She literally, when she applied for a job, was told TV is only for men.
Yeah.
Right. And her first, after she persisted, I guess she had to. The story goes she had to sign up for the overnight shift because it would be less disruptive. And her first job title was copy boy. And so you think of how much has changed since then, how many opportunities have been open. But I would just say to you, you do have opportunities. We need you. We need your voice. We need people who are fluent in many languages. We need to represent our communities. It's a vital way that we build trust. And I know that we at NBC are incredibly committed to this. But I really think that I mean, given the changing demographics in this country, we all realize that we need a diverse, both and Dalila, your point, on camera, but also off camera to have a workforce that really does represent this country and this world is vitally important. And please do not psych yourself out, because there are lots of opportunities, a lot of need for you.
And
Absolutely.
3 women of color.
I was
here
just going to say, look at this table here. And, it's just extraordinary. And that's thanks in part to women like Andrea Mitchell, who kept pushing through those barriers. This was a phenomenal conversation. Can we give it up for all of them? And we just want to say thank you all for taking time to be with us here in D.C. and virtually. We really appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you. Great to be with you.